kitchen. Now for this week's video tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make this really pretty princess inspired cake. Now this will be perfect for a first birthday or a baby shower, and on this cake I'm going to be showing you how I use my Sweetstamp sets to emboss and paint onto buttercream, and also how to use their new outboss stamps to create this really pretty crown. Now you guys know I'm a huge fan of Sweetstamp, and they've kind of given me a 10% off code for all of you. So if you want to get 10% off anything on their website, just enter Cakes by Linz at the checkout. Now, as well as these techniques, I'm also going to be showing you how to add this really pretty glitter drip and how to create these ruffle roses. Okay, let's get started. Now I've baked my 6-inch vanilla sponge cake recipe, and I will put a link in the description below. This has given me enough cake for 4 layers, which are around 1 inch in height each. Now I'm going to fill and crumb coat my cake with a layer of pink buttercream. All the crumb coat is going to do is just lock in any of those loose crumbs that are on the outside. So I'm going in with my metal scraper, smoothing down those sides, and on the top I'm going to use my offset spatula, just bringing that buttercream in from the outside edge to the center. I'm going to pop my cake in the fridge for around 15 to 20 minutes for that buttercream to firm up so that I can add the final coating on the outside. Now once that crumb coat has hardened, I've got 2 different colors of pink buttercream to pop on the outside. I'm going to start by applying a layer of my lighter pink buttercream to the top of my cake. I'm then going to bring this down the side, but stop around halfway, going in with the darker buttercream at the bottom, then going in with my scraper, just making sure that I keep that bottom edge flat on the surface of my board. I'm just going to go in with some of that lighter buttercream, some of that dark, just mixing them together as I go round. And this is going to break up that sharp line. And I'm just repeating that process until I'm completely happy with how that's looking. Also filling in any gaps. Once you're happy with the sides, I'm then going to finish off the top. Now, once you're happy with your cake, I'm going to pop this in the fridge. Now, I want this to be completely chilled, so I'm going to leave it in the fridge for a few hours. This way, the buttercream is going to be really firm when I go to stamp my lettering on the front. So, for the crown that's going to go on the top of the cake, I've created this template, which I've printed out on a piece of card. Now, I will put a link in the description below so that you can print this out for yourselves. Now to add a little bit more detail onto my crown, I'm going to be using one of the Sweetstamp outboss stamps. Now this one is the heart happy birthday, and when you push this onto your fondant, it's got this cut out so the words just come out from the surface of your fondant. Now for the crown, I'm going to be using 50-50 fondant to gum paste. If you don't have gum paste, you could also use modeling paste, or you can add some Tylo powder to your fondant. All we're looking for is our fondant to be able to firm up and keep the shape of that crown. Now I'm going to roll it out until it's around 3 millimeters in thickness, and go in with my craft knife, cut that out. Now I have to give a shout out to Caroline from Love Cake Create, who I first saw use the outbosses on a party hat, which gave me the inspiration for adding it on to the front of a crown. Now with my outboss stamp, it does have this image on the front, but to make sure that it's completely straight, I've just added a few dots to the top and bottom so that I know how straight it is. So I'm going to lay this on the center of my crown, just lining up those 2 dots. Now usually you would roll over the top with your rolling pin, but I don't want to get the creases from the edge of my stamp, so I'm going to go in with my flexi smoother and just really push on the center, trying to avoid the edges but making sure that I really apply as much pressure as I can, and then carefully lift that up, and as you can see we get this happy birthday. Now I have got a slight ridge on the side from the edge of the stamp, so I'm going to use my flexi smoother and just go in, smooth that down. Now if it has changed the shape of your crown at all, go in with your craft knife As you can see, we get this really pretty happy birthday on the front. Now, the reason for leaving my fondant nice and thick is so that it will stand up. Now, we want the two back pieces to join. So I'm going to add a small amount of edible glue and just push those together. Now, I've designed this crown so it's slightly smaller on the bottom and flares out at the sides. And the bottom is actually the same size as a tub of my happy sprinkles. So I'm going to pop one of those in, use it to help that crown keep its shape. Now with the edges of my crown, I'm just going to lightly turn those out, and I'm going to leave this until it has completely dried and hardened so that we can add it onto our cake. I'm going to create some really pretty ruffle roses. Now, these are really simple to make, and I think they just look so cute with this style of cake. So I've taken some of my leftover fondant and gum paste mix that I used for the crown and coloured 2 small balls in some slightly darker shades. I've also coloured a white ball of fondant with some of the Colour Splash leaf green. Now, to make the roses, I'm going to roll out my fondant, and I want this around 2 millimeters in thickness. Now, taking my craft knife, I'm going to cut out a few strips which are around 1 centimeter in width. Go down the edge, smooth that down, starting at the straight edge. I'm going to roll this to create the small bud in the center. I'm then going to start ruffling the edges, and once you've got to the desired size, I'm just going to pull that off, and that's going to give us our first ruffle rose. And then use the craft knife just to cut the back of that. And I'm going to do that with all of my colours. Now, if you wanted them slightly bigger, you could just make the strands of fondant slightly wider, or the same, you could make them slightly smaller, just to give you a variation of sizes. Now, once we've got some of those roses, I'm going to take a small ball of my leaf green fondant and just taper that down on one side to create a teardrop shape. I'm then going to flatten that down, and with my Dresden tool, run that along the centre and pinch the bottom, and that's going to give us these really fun, cute leaves. Now, you can just pull the end of the leaf and just work that round and make a few of those in different sizes to go along with my roses. Now, because we're adding the crown on the top of the cake, the text I'm going to be adding is Little Princess, but you can change this depending on the style of cake that you're creating. First of all, I've got the sweet stick set, and I'm going to be using this for the word little. And for the princess, I'm going to be using the classic set. Now, I'm going to be stamping each of the letters singly, so I only need to get out one of the S's. Now, because I'm going to be stamping into my buttercream cake, I'm going to use the small pickup pad. I'm going to start just by picking up my first letter. I had my cake in the fridge for a few hours, so it's firm to the touch. When embossing the letters onto the front, what we want to stop happening is pushing the letter on, and then when you pull it away, some of that buttercream coming away with it. So I've got a fluffy brush, and I'm going to take some of my corn flour, dust that onto my cake. Now, I haven't added so much that it's changed the colour of the cake. It's just given us a nice film over the top of our buttercream. I can then go in with my first letter, just lightly pushing this against the side of my buttercream. I don't want to push too deeply. I just want to leave a slight outline so that I can see my letters. Now, at any time if you're doing this, if your buttercream is getting too soft, you just want to pop your cake back in the fridge just until that buttercream has re-firmed up. So there we have the little at the top. Now, I want to do the princess underneath. Now, in order to get the right spacing, start with my 2 middle letters and work my way out either side. Now, you can either leave your text as it is, but I'm going to colour mine with a light silver. So I've got the metallic light silver luster dust from Sweet Sticks, and I'm going to mix this with some dipping solution, or you just want to use some alcohol. So I'm just carefully going in, really lightly adding that colour into the letters. Now, if you are finding that your buttercream is starting to warm up and you're getting brush marks in your buttercream, then just pop the cake back in the fridge for around 10 minutes and continue painting the rest of the letters. For my cake board, I'm using a 9-inch drum board and I'm covering this in some white fondant, and I'm going to finish off the edging with some white ribbon. Now I will also put a link in the description below to a more detailed video if you want to see some different styles that you can use to cover your boards. I'm then going to carefully transfer my cake onto my cake board. I'm then going in with my small offset spatula just to clean up any areas at the bottom that may have been slightly damaged with the spatula. Now, before we add the crown and the roses back onto the cake, I want to add a drip around the edge. Now, instead of using chocolate or candy melts to create a colour drip, I'm going to be using piping gel to create a glitter drip. Now, for my glitter drip, I want this to be quite see-through, so I'm going to be using some piping gel. I've got the Wilton piping gel here. I'm going to take around 1.5 tablespoons of that. Depending on the brand that you're using, some piping gels can be slightly thicker than others. So in order to make this so it will run down my cake, I'm going to add a small amount of water. And if you want to test how well it drips before adding it onto your cake, you can just take a glass, turn it upside down and just use the bottom. Now, once you're happy with how that's dripping, I'm going to add some edible glitter. Now, this is just the white edible glitter by Rainbow Dust. So I'm just adding around a teaspoon of that glitter in. I've then got some of the silver finishing sparkle by Sugar Flare, and these I got from Cake Craft World. Now I will leave links in the description below to all the tools that I've used throughout today's video. And just add that, and that's going to give us this really pretty glittery finish. Now if you didn't want your drip to be clear, then you could add some coloured luster dust at this point. Maybe if you wanted a pink drip, you could add some pink luster dust. This one I want to keep quite clear so that you can see all of that glitter. And I've got some of these edible stars. I've also got some of the Shy Princess sprinkles by Happy Sprinkles. Now I'm going to pick out some of the really small ones. I'm picking out some of the really small metallic silver balls and just some of those pink and white strands. So I'm going to pop this into a piping bag. Now I'm not going to be going all the way over the top. I just want to create a drip down some of the side, starting on my top edge. Apply a small amount of pressure just to let that piping gel start to fall. Now with the end of your piping bag, you can always just run it over the top, just pulling that drip down. And as you can see, we've got a drip that's filled with those stars and that glitter. Working my way around that whole top edge, making sure that I keep them quite short above the letters. And I'm also taking just a few of those silver balls from the Shy Princess Sprinkles mix. And they've also got a few white stars. Now, just to soften that top edge where we've got that ridge, I'm just going in with a paintbrush, putting it flat against the top of the cake. So there we have this really pretty glitter drip down the front of the cake. Now the last thing to do is add back in our crown and our roses. Now, taking our crown, once that gum paste and fondant has dried, I can take out whatever container you're using, and there we have our crown with this really pretty happy birthday and these hearts on the front. So for the crown, you can either have it directly on the top, but I want mine at a slight angle. So I'm going to take a small ball of the leftover fondant, place that, it leans at a slight angle. Now to cover this gap, I've got my roses. Take some leftover buttercream, pop a small amount in front of that crown and just fill up that gap. I've then got the tiny leaves that I'm going to push in. And I'm taking a few more of those, finishing off the board, applying a small amount of that buttercream. So here we have the finished little princess birthday cake with this really pretty birthday crown on the top, the ruffle roses and the glitter drip. I really hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial and will be able to use some of these techniques on your own cakes. Also, don't forget, if you do want to get 10% off any of the Sweetstamp items that I've used today, then just head over to their website and enter Cakes by Linz at the checkout. And if you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Cakes by Linz YouTube channel. So until next time, bye!